Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
And we are
the FAIRtax Guys.
Continuing to plug away at the income tax, trying to get rid of it, put it on the scrap heap of history where it belongs, and replace it with a fair tax.
Yeah, that's right. And this episode airs for the first time. Oh, yes, let's not forget this.
Protest, defund the IRS, taxpayers matter.
It's very appropriate. Yeah, hold that up there. It's very appropriate that on Election Day, we remind people that we really need to defund the IRS because taxpayers matter. And there's a lot of taxpayers in this country.
As you mentioned, this episode of FAIRtax Power Radio is streaming for the first time on election night.
Yeah.
Which probably means there are going to be a lot of people watching it after the fact rather than on the live stream.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, we're still going to be here, even though most people's eyeballs are on their favorite television network checking out the returns. And in fact, they've probably already started to come in some places by the time we get on the air here.
Yeah.
But what we are watching.
That also reminds me that not only can you see the live stream on Facebook, but then it's on YouTube and it's on Rumble and it's on Instagram. You know, I make sure that it gets distributed to all these places, and we'll put links to it on Parler and Twitter and so forth. So there's lots of places. I mean, after the results are in and you go to bed at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, and to see if your candidate won, then the next day you can look up FAIRtax Power Radio and see what the heck it was.
Okay, but one thing we want to do that we haven't done in quite a while here on FAIRtax Power Radio is encourage people to interact with us.
Yes.
You know, we got the FAIRtax Guys at gmail.com. We get some comments there. We get people leaving comments on our YouTube videos. We have people talking to us on our Facebook page, but we'd love to hear from you.
Yes.
We really would. If you've got especially if you've got a question or that you're not really clear about, a point about the fair tax that you need a little clarification on, that we can help you out with that. If you just would like to share our videos with family and friends, we appreciate that. Well, we get some pretty nice comments from folks, and you've got one over there. We did a show a couple of weeks ago about a really, really dedicated fair tax volunteer that we both knew personally, Nick Rudlick, and mentioned him on the FTPR episode a while back, and got a nice comment from a gentleman on that.
Yeah, that episode was number 234. Super volunteer Nick Rudlick, and Keith Lean here sent a short comment. He said, "It's just too bad Nick died before the fair tax became reality. He gave it his best shot, and I thank him." And we all do. Those of us that knew him, there's, like I said, there's some great volunteers across the country, but you have to do something to top what Nick did. He was all in for the fair tax, and he was always thinking of new ways to promote the fair tax constantly.
If you haven't put fair tax decals on your car, haven't put fair tax decals on a 35-foot motorhome and driven it around, if you haven't put fair tax decals on your walker that you needed to get around, then you're not quite in Nick's category yet. And very few people are going to reach that level. But I think we ought to really redouble our efforts as a memorial dedicated to Nick to make sure that this fair tax happens.
So thanks, Keith. That was a nice comment, and we're happy to share it with everybody.
Well, I got another one here.
Yeah.
This is a comment on the next episode after that. That was number 234. This is number 235, which I must admit was one of my favorite episodes we've done in quite a while, going through all of the crazy tax deductions that people have tried to take. Some of them were successful and some weren't. If you haven't seen that, go to FAIRtaxGuys.com and check out episode number 235. The title, Are Big Boobs and Cat Food Deductible? The answer to actually in both of those cases turned out to be yes. Check that out.
That's right.
But, we got a comment on that video from Carlos Phillips. We were talking about another guy who burned down, who had a failing furniture store business, and he hatched a plot to hire an arsonist to burn the thing down. He was going to collect the insurance money, but he tried to deduct the cost of hiring the arsonist as a business expense on his tax return. And Carlos says, I knew a guy in Rockcastle County, Kentucky that burnt 11 houses down, $10,000 a crack. So I guess $10,000 is not, I thought it was a rather extravagant fee for an arsonist, but apparently that's the going rate here. But he burned down the 11 houses at $10,000 a crack so people could collect insurance. He never got caught, and he never will because now he's dead. So we get the humorous and we get the serious here at FAIRtax.
And I
Power
doubt
Radio.
very much that he actually claimed the money that he quote unquote earned by burning down those places.
Yeah, the arsonist probably didn't report any of that. Now, had we had the fair tax and he spent that money on stuff,
right.
we would make a fair tax taxpayer out of that arsonist.
That's right. When he collected that money, no matter how he illegally it was that he collected that money, he would have paid the fair tax when he went to the store, and he started living large from his his income there.
Well, you wonder how many of the people that hired him, with those 11 guys that hired him, how many of them tried to deduct the cost of hiring his expense like the first guy did. But that's crazy. But again, if you enjoy our videos, we'd love to hear from you. Love to hear from you at our email address, thefairtaxguys@gmail.com. Love to have comments on our Facebook page, and of course now we're on Parler and Rumble. We're on some new platforms that I haven't really gotten into all that great.
Yep.
But we'll be checking those for comments as well.
I've been trying to use Parler more because I'm really sick and tired of the what's going on Twitter with the censoring and so forth. These people are very one-sided. Parler is not like that. So I've been spending a lot more time on Parler, both as myself and as the FAIRtax Guys.
Okay, check that out. Now, you have another one of our Grassroots Corners.
Grassroots Corner, yep.
Now, this is about somebody we know.
Yep. Grassroots Corner. Jim Bennett is the director with the AFFT, the Americans for Fair Taxation, and you can contact Jim at jim.bennett@fairtax.org. And if you have something of a grassroots nature that you want to alert him to or ask him a question, just use that email address. And he does this every week. Meet Fair Taxer Mike Simmons. Jim has decided to start highlighting certain people. Now, we did Nick Rudlick because he passed away. We did him a couple of weeks ago. Fortunately, Mike is still with us.
He's still kicking. I mean, yeah, he is contributing mightily here to the Florida Fair Tax effort.
And we don't get to see Mike very often, but over email and the phone, he has been extremely helpful because his business, he's still an active businessman, is building websites and helping business people get noticed on the internet. And he's really knowledgeable about that. So he has helped out. He built the Florida Fair Tax website. If you go to flfairtax.org, you'll see this beautiful website that he built for us.
And ditto for the new FairTax store website.
And he's now taking care of the FairTax store since the other couple retired, or in the midst of retiring, and kind of put that store to bed. He came up with the idea, okay, we can do this. We'll change things around a bit, and I'll give him a new website. And so the new store is fairtaxstore.org. And so Mike is running the FairTax store. Whenever we have a problem, like a problem with email or our website or something of that nature, Mike, help, and
he sure knows what he's doing, and he does really good work.
Yeah, his experience and his expertise is just amazing, all right? And usually it doesn't take much for him to get things straightened out. So he's a huge asset. He is on the board of directors for the Florida Fair Tax, and for us here in Florida and for others across the country, people with the AFFT, he's been a big asset. So take a look at that Grassroots Corner and see what Jim has to say about him. It's a nice report, and it gives you an idea of just one more wonderful volunteer that we have, because again, we are all volunteers. There are no paid positions. We are people who firmly believe that the fair tax has to happen in this country, must happen. And so we all volunteer to get this done. So thanks a lot.
Okay. As we noted, this episode is streaming live for the first time. We're recording it a few days ahead of time, but it's streaming on election night. Mm-hmm. So again, we have no idea how the returns are coming back. We noted last week, everybody has an idea. I know what's going to happen. My guy's going to win. That's everybody thinking that. So we'll find out who's right and who's not. But one of the things that we really wanted to do was wanted to go back and thank all of the candidates and all of the volunteers that were involved in this process in getting candidates for the House and Senate to sign the Fair Tax Pledge. Mm. Now, what that was, you could go to fairtax.org, you could download a hard copy of a pledge for the candidate to sign, basically saying, if I am elected, I will co-sponsor the FAIRtax legislation, and of course we'll vote for it if it comes up on the floor for a vote.
Yep.
And so there were a lot of folks. Here's the list, and that's the pledge.
Yep.
Okay. And there were actually, we were looking at this. We look at it and think that's a pretty good number. You counted up like 30.
Yep.
But when you think 30 out of 535, you can see we've still got some work to do.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if this is a complete list. There may be more that Randy knows about that I haven't, because it's been a while since I updated this list.
If we miss any, it was not intentional, and if there are any additions, you can add them in the comments to this video if you like to. But we just wanted to take a second and thank all of the candidates. Now, unfortunately, not all of them made it through their primaries. Some did, some didn't. But we want to mention everybody who signed the FAIRtax pledge and the volunteers that helped make this happen. So let's just kind of go down one at a time. We'll alternate back and forth.
Okay.
We want to say thank you to Alan Waters, who was a candidate for Rhode Island Senate. He signed the FAIRtax pledge.
Yep. And then there was Dr. Rich McCormick, who was running for Congress in Georgia District 7. Okay.
Iowa District 2. They had two of them, actually. It was Rick Phillips was one. Yep. And Stephen Everly was the other one. So thank those gentlemen for signing the FAIRtax pledge.
Yep. And another candidate for Senate, Stanley Adair from Alabama, who is running for Senate in Alabama.
All right. William Schaefer, Iowa District 3, FAIRtax candidate pledge signer.
Yep. And Gavin Rollins, we had Randy and I did a video with Mr. Rollins. He was running here in Florida for District 3. There were like 10 people running for on the Republican side, running for District 3.
Yeah, Florida District 3 got a lot of pledges. I guess that we're kind of active here in Florida. Proud of that. Steve King, Iowa 4. He's a FAIRtax pledge signer.
Yep. Vance Dean, Georgia District 8. He was running for Congress in Georgia's District 8.
Here's another Florida one, District 4, John Rutherford.
And he's an incumbent.
Yes.
And he is currently a FAIRtax co-sponsor. And I haven't talked to him myself because I'm not in District 4, but I'm sure Paul Livingston will keep after him and make sure that he is a co-sponsor once again. All right, assuming he gets reelected. Joseph Mulatto, Florida District 3. Now, Florida District 3 is geographically large. We're about in the southern part of it here, where our studio is, and it goes all the way up to the edge of Jacksonville. And I believe Joseph Mulatto is up in that area, Orange Park, something like that.
Thank you to Phil Arlinghouse, Tennessee District 1, for signing the FAIRtax pledge.
Yep. And then Jeremy Taylor, Iowa District 4. He signed the FAIRtax pledge.
Okay, from New Jersey. That's kind of a state, a really deep blue state, where you wouldn't think there'd be a lot of FAIRtax support.
Yeah, I was very happy to see that one.
Alter Richter, R-C-H-T-E-R, New Jersey District 4, signed the FAIRtax pledge.
And Kat Kamek, here again in Florida 3, one of the many people here in Florida 3 that signed the pledge.
Yeah, and Kat Kamek is another one that we went up to talk to. Now, again, we don't want to make this show too Florida-centric, but this is kind of what we know most about. Kat Kamek did win her primary. She is on the general election ballot. She is running to replace Congressman Ted Yoho, who is voluntarily resigning. Congressman Yoho, of course, has been a FAIRtax supporter all along, a co-sponsor all along, and we're glad to see that Kat Kamek is going to continue that should she be elected here in actually tonight when this runs.
Yep, that's good news. Yep. And
Ryan Chamberlain, also Florida 3. Amy Pope Wells, also Florida 3. Obviously, neither one got through the primary because Kat Kamek did.
Yeah.
But we thank everyone who did take the time to sign the candidate pledge. We just wanted to mention everybody's name.
Yep. P.T. Burton, Arizona 9. I think he signed the pledge. I've got a note here that he had a verbal commitment, but I have to admit, I haven't updated this list for quite a while, so hopefully they got the pledge from him. But at least, if nothing else, he showed an interest.
Yeah, Byron Donalds, Florida 19.
Yeah, and he is currently locked into his race for Florida 19. Richard Castaldo, all right, Oklahoma 2. he signed the FAIRtax pledge.
As did Dr. James St. George, again a Florida District 3 person.
Another District 3 here in Florida. Micah Beckwith, that's Indiana 5. Yeah, that person signed the pledge also, Indiana.
Here's one from California.
Yeah, that's great. It's
California
great
District 27, Jana Nalbandian, is that how that's pronounced maybe? And our list here says that's a per Paul Gasper volunteer. So thanks to Paul for trying to help us out here in getting that candidate in California 27, Nalbandian, to sign the FAIRtax pledge.
Yep, and I wish we had more information on other volunteers that got these pledges, so I don't mean to leave those people short, but
when we have the info, we'll pass it on.
Yeah, behind every one of these, there's at least one really active volunteer that made this happen.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see. Oh, Barry Moore, Alabama District 2 for Congress in Alabama District 2, signed the pledge.
Loveland Gwynn, New York 13.
Yep. Kevin Kahn, Ohio 1, signed the pledge, and we had a...
I'm not mistaken, that's the one that Jim Bennett wrote about, the volunteer that got that one.
They found somebody in that District 1 that was a contributor, and that person went and got Kevin Kahn's signature.
That one was kind of unique. This is one time where the candidate says, I want to sign the pledge. Bring me somebody who can get it. Most all the rest of these, it was a result of somebody bringing the pledge to the candidate and saying, will you sign this?
That's right. That's a good point. That's nice to see, too.
Kevin wanted to sign it on his own. We had to actually go through the database of people who had contributed. Mm-hmm. And I believe it was the Cincinnati area that we were able to get his thing done.
Then we had...
2 more Florida 3s, actually 3 more Florida 3s.
Todd Chase, here in Florida, District 3, Judson Sapp. And Judson Sapp took some persuading, but Randy kept on him and his staff and so forth, and he finally decided, this is a good thing for me to do. I think because he probably saw, first, not only is the FAIRtax a winning issue, but many other candidates in District 3 had signed the pledge, and I think he saw that this was going to be something good for him. Bill Engelbrecht, Florida 3. All right, and again, I think we can thank Randy for that. He was very active here. And then finally...
This last one is my personal favorite one, because this is the one that kind of you and I were involved in a way.
Yep.
We got invited to present to the... 912 Club.
Yeah, the 912 Club in Winter Haven.
And there were several candidates for office down there at that meeting. One of them was a gentleman named Sergio Ortiz. And when we mentioned we had a FAIRtax candidates pledge, if you would like to support the FAIRtax, I mean, he leaped up with his hand in the air. Where do I sign?
Yeah, he was actively looking to sign the pledge, so we signed him up right there. Took a couple of nice pictures.
So again, not all of these people made it through their primary and are being voted on tonight, but we did want to recognize all of the candidates, and that sounds like a fairly long list. It took us a while to go through it all.
Yeah.
But when you consider there are like 535 Congress critters, 435 in the House, 100 in the Senate, a list of this length that's only like 30 long, you can kind of see how much work we have remaining to do.
But as we have pointed out in previous episodes of FAIRtax Power Radio, signing the pledge and strongly defending your position is a winner for candidates, all right? To the point where, and they've done research on this. I've read parts of the research on a previous episode, although I couldn't tell you exactly what number it is. But anyways, if there's, let's say you're running for Congress against an incumbent, all right, the FAIRtax pledge and your position on the FAIRtax actually erases the advantage the incumbent has. That's a big deal, okay? That's how strong the FAIRtax is, because once you understand it, you'll demand it.
Make your opponent run as a friend of the IRS.
Yeah, there you go.
If I were running for office and I were cast in the position of having to defend the income tax and having to explain to people why the IRS is a good thing and why withholding is a good thing and why payroll taxes are a good thing, and my opponent is saying, I want to get rid of all that stuff, I'm going to be in a world of hurt trying to explain that what we've got now, the status quo, is a better system. because it ain't.
Yeah, because, people tolerate the income tax. They tolerate what the government does to us. But when given an option and when they truly understand the fair tax, they go with the fair tax.
Yeah, well, they tolerate it because they don't think they have a choice in the matter.
Yeah, that's right.
And the beauty of what's going on tonight, people do have a choice in the matter. Now, we have documented on FAIRtax Power Radio the tremendous influence that lobbyists and special interests exert over the Congress critters. But what you're seeing tonight, which no matter which network you're watching, if you're watching the election returns, you are seeing we the people deciding who our representatives are going to be. And the only way that we're ever going to get the fair tax is to elect more people who support it and will vote for it.
Yeah.
And we'll tell the lobbyists, forget it. I'm going to sue to represent the interest of the people, because the fair tax has been described accurately, I believe, as one of, if not the biggest single transfer of power from the government back to the people in a number of generations.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
So again,
and the one thing about what's going on here, these folks will be sworn in, I believe, January 3rd, something like that. Okay? And the people in the House who are successfully elected to the House will immediately start running for office for 2 years, because it takes almost 2 years to run for office.
The election cycle begins the day you're sworn in.
And some of the senators, about 1/3 of the senators, all right? So next January, we start all over again, and we'll be collecting pledges, and we're going to be working on people who were just elected to the House and getting them to be co-sponsors. Now, we have some people who've signed the pledge. We don't expect any problem there, but with others, we're going to have to make the case.
Yeah. So if your district is being represented by a first-time congressional representative, now would be a really good time to approach that person, if they aren't on the list that we already read, and say, hey, how about getting rid of the IRS? Get the income tax out of my life. Get the government's hand out of my back pocket. Let me keep everything I earn. And you can do that and still fund the government at the same level that you're funding it now if you just get rid of the income tax, replace it with a fair tax.
Yeah.
So,
and I'd like to make the case, if your congressman, come January, is a Democrat, right now it's unfortunate that only Republicans have co-sponsored the fair tax. And it shouldn't be that way, all right? The fair tax really cuts across party lines. It helps everybody, no matter how you look at it.
I don't know anybody who would like more money and who would not like more money in their paycheck.
Yeah.
Because with the fair tax, withholding goes away. The government doesn't get a big chunk of your money before you get it. Doesn't charge you the payroll taxes. So only people working for a paycheck are supporting Social Security and Medicare right now. The fair tax changes that, expands the tax base to everybody who buys things, or at least everybody whose spending rises above the poverty level.
And it puts you in charge of your level of taxation. All right. For instance, when it comes time to buy a car, you don't have to buy a new car and pay the fair tax. You can legally avoid the fair tax by buying a used car. All right. Same with a home. 90% of the home sales are for, pre-existing homes. Okay. So you do have a choice. You are in charge of your taxation when it comes to the fair tax, unlike what we have now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So even if you're not being represented by a freshman congressperson, go ask your representative, what is it that you love so much about the IRS? Why won't you get behind the movement to replace the income tax with a fair tax? And don't settle for some boilerplate answer.
Yeah.
Pin them down. Be polite, but be persistent. And explain to them, hey, I voted for you. You work for me. This is what I'd like to see you do.
And you can tell them to go to FAIRtaxGuys.com and look up our videos. They can get a good education on the fair tax by watching our videos. You know something we haven't done in a while, Bob?
What's that?
Is your cubes.
My cubes. Oh,
yeah.
yes.
We need to spend a little time
Ask your
on that.
Congress critter why you prefer this one.
Yeah.
And for those listening on a podcast or the radio station, this is my 11 by 11 Rubik's Cube that is just scrambled as well as I can scramble it. And a lot of the center pieces are not lined with there. It's not actually a cubical shape as I'm holding it in my hand right now.
It's a mess, because that's what the income tax is.
That
it's
is a
big
mess. And say, why do you love? Of course, we did this really for the the first time when we went to CPAC a few years ago.
And it was
And
a
folks
big
stopped
hit.
by. They wanted to try to solve the cubes.
Yeah. But people looked at it and they saw your label for the income tax in front of the big scrambled one. And then the next one is a little bit smaller and it's kind of not too scrambled. That's the flat tax. And then there's the very simple 2x2 Rubik's Cube that a child could do, except, well, maybe not me, but anyways.
In fact, I'm going to scramble it and hand it to you.
That represents, in fact, Bob has made the comment that really the FAIRtax should be a 1x1.
Yeah. Well, actually, I did based on the number of pages of the FAIRtax bill versus the number of pages that we have in the income tax code and the regulations and everything like that. If I really wanted to do a good scale model representation, a 2x2 cube representing the FAIRtax, that the cube representing the income tax, this is 11 by 11. It would have to be like 28 by 28. Twice this size and then some to illustrate the difference between that. And again, if you're listening to a podcast or on the radio station, go back and check out the FAIRtax, or not the, FAIRtaxGuys.com. There's no "the" in the front of that web address. And look at the video of this episode and kind of see what we're talking about. But yeah, I have fun with the cubes.
Yeah, it makes a good impression. So, we got a couple minutes left here, so we need to go through our call to action, okay?
Indeed.
So, what do we got that's good on here?
Well, I would suggest, I'm not sure this is even on the list, but again, we mentioned this earlier. When your congressman gets elected and takes office, you can use a phone call if you want to. They can ignore phone calls, but make a personal visit.
Yeah.
I'd suggest make a personal visit to your representative. Take some palm cards with you if you can get those from the FAIRtax store. And just sit down one-on-one with your representative and explain to them what the FAIRtax is if they don't understand it. And if you can explain it to them and they understand it, chances are they'll demand it.
That's right. And you can follow up by going to their town halls with the scrolling banner.
And they start having those in person again.
Yeah, which you can get in the FAIRtax store, fairtaxstore.org.
The president had a lot of open-air rallies here in the last days of the campaign. I wonder how many people could bring those to
that would be good.
To one of those and check that out.
That would be good. Yeah.
As always, join AFFT, Americans for Fair Taxation, the 1040 Club, if you can. If you can pledge $10.40 a month to help get rid of the Form 1040, that would help immensely.
Yeah, and FAIRtax Guys are in a lot of different places. First, we have our own website, FAIRtaxGuys.com, that we already mentioned. But we're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Parler, Gab, Instagram. The podcasts are on Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, and iHeart. And so we're just all over the place.
Oh, don't forget the radio stations now.
And the radio stations, right. The WTOB in Winston-Salem.
WTOB in Winston-Salem, the station I grew up listening to, the flagship station of the FAIRtax Power Radio Network. WAME in Statesville, WLSC Laura, South Carolina. Thank those guys for carrying us.
Yep, they all broadcast our show on Sunday morning. So, and there's a chance that we're going to expand that too. Okay.
All right, one more quickie.
Yep, call into your local and national talk shows and talk up the FAIRtax. And yes, call into the national ones. Randy got on there a few months ago.
Yep, and that's going to wrap up this edition of FAIRtax Power Radio. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
Reminding you the FAIRtax is the only truly fair tax, and once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
So tell me, how could I pay less taxes?
Less.
Yeah, I'm trying to get ahead, so how can I pay less?
Well, I suppose you could pay less taxes by earning less money, or you could give to charity.
How is that going to help?
Actually, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but if you know the right people, okay, or if you have a really good lawyer, you can usually get around the big ones.
If I may, under the FAIRtax, to pay less taxes, you would simply consume less. You would control how much you pay and when you pay your taxes simply by choosing what you purchase and when you purchase something.
So I could stay focused and get ahead.
Exactly.